On a bitterly cold December morning in 1998, the city of Chicago was wrapped in a hush, the kind that only winter brings. A silence broken only by the crunch of boots on snow and the distant hum of traffic. In the early hours as the city began to stir, a park maintenance worker made his daily rounds, bracing himself against the biting wind. As he passed a row of benches dusted with frost, he stopped abruptly. There, curled up on the hard wooden slats, was a small child, no more than 6 years old, her knees drawn to her chest, a thin, pale face half hidden beneath tangled hair. She wore only a light jacket, woefully inadequate against the freezing air. The worker's breath caught in his throat. He knelt beside her, gently shaking her shoulder, his gloved hand trembling more from shock than cold. The authorities arrived quickly, their blue and red lights casting eerie patterns across the snow. The girl was awake, but she didn't cry or speak. She stared straight ahead, her eyes wide and strangely distant. When offered food, she nibbled mechanically. When questioned, she was silent, her gaze flickering away from every outstretched hand. She wouldn't even meet the eyes of the kind officer who wrapped her in a blanket and whispered gentle reassurances. At the station, the girl's silence persisted. No identification was found in her pockets, and no missing persons report matched her description. She was a mystery, a ghost child conjured from the winter night. The only clue she offered was in the form of drawings. Given a pencil and paper, she drew the same symbol over and over, a circle, inside of which undulating lines rose and fell like waves. She drew it on napkins, on the backs of forms, on the skin of her own arms when nothing else was available. The symbol became her voice, her only means of communication with the world. The local news picked up the story, dubbing her the Winter Child. The city was captivated. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why did she draw that symbol so obsessively? The police circulated the image, hoping someone would recognize it, but no answers came. Social services placed her in the care of Elizabeth Chen, a veteran foster parent known for her patience and warmth. Elizabeth had opened her modest apartment to dozens of children over the years, each carrying their own burdens. But there was something about this silent girl that tugged at her heart. She named her Maya, after her own grandmother, a woman who had survived much and loved deeply. Elizabeth's home was a haven of gentle routines. She cooked simple meals, played soft music, and took Maya on daily walks to the nearby lake whenever weather allowed. She never pressured Maya to speak, instead offering a steady presence, believing that trust and safety would eventually coax the child's voice from hiding. For weeks, Maya observed the world in silence, her eyes watchful and wary, as if weighing every gesture, every word. Specialists came and went, suggesting that Maya had likely experienced severe trauma, perhaps something so horrific that her mind had locked it away. They speculated that the symbol she drew might be a clue to her past, a memory, a sign, a fragment of something lost. But no one could decipher its meaning. Maya's days settled into a quiet rhythm. She ate what was offered, slept fitfully, and drew her symbol on every available surface. Elizabeth, though perplexed by the child's silence, never lost hope. She spoke to Maya as she would any other child, telling her stories, humming lullabies, and describing the world outside their window. She held Maya's small hand during thunderstorms, when the girl's body would tense and her eyes would fill with fear. 3 months passed. One night, a snowstorm swept through the city, knocking out power in Elizabeth's building. The apartment was plunged into darkness, and the cold crept in around the edges. Maya began to tremble violently, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Elizabeth wrapped her in blankets, lit candles, and gathered her close, humming a lullaby her mother had sung to her in childhood. As the melody filled the room, Maya's trembling eased. Then, in a voice so soft it was barely more than a breath, she whispered a single word. Water. It was the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. Over the following weeks, Maya began to speak in fragments, broken sentences, half-formed thoughts. She never spoke of her past, but she became obsessed with water. She asked to visit the lake, stood transfixed by the ripples, and spent long minutes staring into the depths. She loved baths, but recoiled in terror when rain lashed the windows or thunder rumbled overhead. Elizabeth documented every word, every reaction, hoping to piece together the puzzle of Maya's life. She reached out to Dr. Sarah Winters, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. Dr. Winters began working with Maya through play therapy, gently coaxing her to express herself through stories and drawings. The symbol, the circle with waves, appeared again and again, especially in scenarios involving boats. When Dr. Winters asked about it, Maya would shut down, retreating into silence for hours. Progress was slow, with small breakthroughs followed by setbacks. But Elizabeth never wavered. Her love for Maya grew deeper, rooted in the quiet moments they shared, the soft laughter when feeding ducks at the lake, the warmth of Maya's hand in hers during walks, the faint smile that appeared when Elizabeth read her favorite stories. As Maya's 7th birthday approached, a date estimated by doctors based on her dental records, a local news station ran a follow-up story on the Winter Child. The segment featured the symbol Maya drew so obsessively, hoping someone might recognize it. The story might have faded into obscurity, but fate intervened. Thomas Reynolds, a maritime accident investigator from Seattle, happened to be in Chicago for a conference. Watching the news in his hotel room, he sat bolt upright when Maya's symbol appeared on screen. He recognized it instantly, a simplified version of the logo once painted on the side of a small passenger ferry that had capsized on Lake Michigan almost exactly a year before Maya was found. The ferry accident had been devastating. 15 passengers had lost their lives, including a family of 4. Thomas had investigated the incident himself and remembered it well. The captain, pressured by the company to maintain the schedule, had ignored weather warnings. The case had been closed, the company fined, but the memory lingered. Thomas contacted the reporter who had aired the story. Within hours, he was sitting in Elizabeth's living room, explaining the connection between Maya's symbol and the ill-fated ferry. Elizabeth listened, realization dawning as she recalled Maya's obsession with water and her terror of storms. The timeline matched. The ferry had sunk in November 1998, just weeks before Maya was found. Authorities reopened the investigation. Old passenger manifests revealed that a woman named Claire Wilson had boarded the ferry with her daughter Emma, age 5. They were listed among the victims, but Emma's body had never been recovered. Further investigation revealed that Claire had been fleeing an abusive relationship with Emma's father, Michael Wilson. Police reports documented multiple calls for domestic violence, and Claire had recently obtained a restraining order. Detectives theorized that Claire might have told Emma to run if anything happened. A desperate attempt to protect her child. When Maya heard the name Emma Wilson, she became violently ill, racked with tremors and nausea. When she calmed, she whispered to Elizabeth that the bad man would find her now. Elizabeth held her close, promising protection. With the help of Dr. Winters, Maya began to share fragmented memories. Her mother's voice, urgent and loving, telling her to put on a life jacket and hold on to anything that floated. The shock of icy water, the confusion and terror as she drifted in darkness. The endless hours, numb and alone, before she washed ashore miles from the accident site. The days wandering, dazed and frightened, before collapsing on the park bench. The revelation of Maya's true identity brought new challenges. Michael Wilson, living in Detroit with a new partner, was located. When informed that his daughter might be alive, he immediately claimed paternal rights and demanded her return. A court battle ensued, with Elizabeth fighting to keep the child she had come to love. Maya's reaction to the possibility of returning to her father was immediate and severe. She suffered night terrors, regressed into mutism, and once again drew the fairy symbol with frantic intensity. Dr. Winters testified that returning Maya to her father would cause irreparable psychological harm. The case became a national story. Child welfare advocates rallied behind Elizabeth, while Michael's attorneys argued that a father's rights could not be terminated without proof of direct abuse. The turning point came when Michael's current partner came forward with evidence of ongoing violence and threats, including specific references to Emma. Combined with Maya's memories and the desperate circumstances of Claire's flight, the judge ruled in Elizabeth's favor. Maya would remain with Elizabeth, with any contact with her biological father contingent on extensive therapy and strict supervision. By the time Maya turned 10, she had legally become Maya Chen. The symbol that once haunted her was transformed, now painted in bright colors on her bedroom wall, surrounded by butterflies and stars. Therapy sessions with Dr. Winters shifted focus from healing old wounds to building resilience and hope. Maya discovered a passion for swimming and joined a youth water safety program, determined to help other children feel safe around water. On the 10th anniversary of her discovery, 16-year-old Maya stood before a packed room at a community fundraiser. Her voice was steady as she told her story. The mother who had saved her, the woman who had healed her, and the power of patience and love to mend even the deepest wounds. The circle with the waves that once symbolized her trauma had become her emblem of survival. Today, Maya Chen leads a national foundation supporting children who have survived disaster and trauma. She lives in Chicago, not far from the park where she was found, and visits the lake often to honor her mother's memory. Elizabeth, now in her 70s, works alongside her daughter, training foster parents to care for traumatized children. The symbol that once mystified a city is now the Foundation's logo, a reminder that even in the stormiest waters, hope endures.